Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game from Scratch, and we've got some news. We got some massive news, actually, on the Unity front, and that is Unity have finally filed for an IPO. They filed their S1 documentation with the SEC to go public today. Now, what the heck does all that mean? I will give you a quick business primer as best as I can in this video. But first off, an IPO is the most important thing to understand. Now, this has been rumored for some time. Going back to February of 2019, I did an article on if Unity is going to be going public in 2020. Apparently, the answer is yeah, it is. And the truth of the matter is, since John Ricciatello, basically CEO of EA previously, and everyone's favorite person, came on board as CEO, they really figured that, yeah, this is why he's there, that they are going to go public. And as I mentioned earlier on, they filed their S1 documentation. Now, an S1 is basically a statement to the SEC being the Securities and Exchange Commission. These are the people that, when a stock does something fraudulent, it's the SEC that handles the punishment or the investigation aspect. And when a stock is trying to register or go public, this is the organization through which you have to file. Now, some of these filings are pretty sparse for the most part. Like, for example, right now, they have it priced at, they want $100 million in this IPO. There's no way that's what they're going for. And at that valuation, everybody's dollar value is crap. That's actually showing common stock at 0.00005 par value per share. That is a placeholder. That number is ultimately going to change. Now, how much money Unity makes from this IPO, that will be interesting. But essentially what an IPO does is takes a stock from being private to being public, which means it is sold on the stock market. Interestingly enough, this is going to be trading under the symbol U if it gets in, which is kind of a cool stock symbol to get a hold of. And what it means is you or me or trust funds or various other villains out there can purchase shares in Unity. But it also means that Unity has less control over their fate. And unfortunately, what it generally means is that Unity is now going to have to start making money and making their board happy. Now, one of the interesting things about an S1 filing is it gives us all kinds of insights into a previously pretty closed company. When you are a private company, you only really have to disclose your financials to your shareholders, the people or the companies that have invested in you privately. But when you're a public, it's a different story. One of the things you have to do is list out the risk factors. This is what people need to be aware of before they buy your stock. And there's some really interesting things here. First off, Unity has been burning through money. They've been losing money like mad. We've experienced net losses in each period since inception. We incurred net losses of 131 million, 163 million, 67.1 million, and 54.1 million for the years ending December 31st, 2018 and 2019. So they've been losing a couple $100 million per year in the 6 months ending June 30th, 2019 and 2020, respectively, which included 20.9 million, 44.5 million, 14.8 million, and 21.7 million, respectively, of stock-based compensation expenses. So there is a lot of costs here, and they don't make money. And I'm actually kind of shocked that they're burning through that much cash previously. Now, again, when a company is in a pre-IPO stage, they're not really expecting to make money. They're more expecting to grow, so then they can go public, and that's when everyone gets paid. We have limited history operating our business at its current scale, and as a result, our past results may be not indicative of our future operating performance. That's basically just saying they're not used to being this big, and they could have some issues there. And their ability depends on their ability to retain our existing customers and expand their use of the platform. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Unity is only going to succeed if they keep people using Unity. If we are unable to attract new customers, our business, financial conditions, and results of operation will be adversely affected. And this one, again, I found shocking. They make most of their money from Operate Solutions, which is kind of their stuff like their cloud-based offerings, rev share deals, etc. This is not necessarily money they're making from just straight out selling Unity license. This is from all of their other stuff. And I found that a little bit interesting. Usage-based revenue for our Operate Solutions comes from our Delta DNA, Multiplay, and Vivox products. Those are all products they actually picked up and purchased along with their cloud-based solutions that they've been offering. It is shocking to hear that over 50%, in some cases over 60% of their revenue was actually from those and not from the Unity engine licenses itself. Operating system platform providers or application stores may change the terms of service, policies, or technical requirements to require us or our customers to change data collection and privacy policies, business models, operation practices, advertising activities, or application content, which could adversely impact our business. Now, it's interesting that this one was here, and I wonder if they added this as a risk because of the crap that's going down between Epic and Apple right now. And they're not wrong here, and they're basically at the whims of these gatekeepers, which is part of my argument why these gatekeepers shouldn't really exist in the form that they do. But the fact that they have to list this in their IPO as a risk factor, it's kind of interesting. So if we are unable to further expand into new industries, or if our solution for any new industry fail to achieve market acceptance, our growth and operating results could be adversely affected, and we may be required to reconsider our growth strategy. That's basically a way of saying, like they're trying to move into film and automotive and all that. If they fail there, well, that revenue stream may not ultimately work out. Our business relies on strategic relationships with hardware, operating system, device, game console, and other technology providers. If we're unable to maintain favorable terms and conditions and business relationships with respect to our strategic relationships, our business could be harmed. This is kind of the same thing. Basically, right now, for example, they're supporting Apple platforms. If that relationship goes sour, they can't support those platforms. Ditto for Xbox, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and so on. So those relationships are important. And also, one of the big strengths of Unity is how early they support these new hardware systems. So if those relationships go south and they don't get early access to the newest, greatest hardware, then they could take a hit as a result there as well. Interruption, performance problems, or defects associated with our platform may adversely affect our business, financial conditions, and results of operation. This kind of basically is saying that if Unity sucks, it could hurt them. And you know what? I hope this is part of why they may be focusing more on the stability and usability of Unity as of right now. Market in which we participate are competitive. If we do not compete effectively, our business, financial condition, and results of operation could be harmed. This one is pretty generic, but basically they're saying straight out, there's a lot of competition in this space. Create Solution basically seems to be their name for Unity. We compete against proprietary game engines built in-house by large game studios, as well as Unreal Engine, Cocos 2D, and which offer game development tools primarily serving the PC, game, and mobile sector. In the case of Unreal Engine, industries beyond gaming. So again, that's like the film and engineering and such. They're both trying to branch out into. They compete with other development platforms that offer 2D and 3D products. So other companies such as Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Tencent could move into that space and offer more competition there. Interestingly enough, they don't make any mention of open source here that I can see. So nothing about Godot. Now, I guess Cocos 2D is technically open source, but it's weird that they only list Unreal and Cocos 2D as potential competitors, because there is a lot more out in that space. And again, there's the open source, which is basically they're competing against free. Kind of shocked that they're not mentioning that in this case. If we are third-party providers experience a security breach, this one's pretty straightforward. Cyber attacks, they really suck for us, but they can actually really suck, especially for a liability perspective of those companies out there. So yeah, there's a lot of these risk things. If we fail to timely release updates and new features to our platform, adapt and respond effectively to changing stuff, changing regulations, customer needs, etc., this is sort of a repetition of other things. Basically, they got to grow the platform as the industry, etc., grows as well. Our business and operations have experienced recent rapid growth, which may not be indicative of our future growth. Our rapid growth also makes it difficult to evaluate our future prospects. So this is the bit. So you can actually see where they made money. We saw the losses earlier, but they made $380 million, $541 million, $252 million, $351 million between 2018 and 2019. So if we add those numbers up, we're looking at, I don't know, what, 1.4 billion-ish? So that's where we're kind of looking in terms of their actual growth right now. Their headcount has grown from 217 full-time employees in 2019 to 3,379 as of June 30th, 2020. And our number of customers contributing more than 100,000 of trailing 12-month revenue has grown from 600 to 716. So they got 716 customers that are paying them 100 grand or more. That's pretty impressive, I guess. But obviously those things are all important to keeping things going. May not be able to successfully manage our growth, and if we are not able to grow efficiently, our business, financial conditions, and results could be harmed. That was pretty straightforward. We rely on performance of highly skilled personnel, including our own management and other key employees, and the loss of one or more such personnel, or as a significant number of our team members, or the inability to attract and retain executives, employees we need to support our operations growth could harm our business. So obviously their CEO thinks he's very important to this whole gig, and they need to give him lots of money, along with all of their other top level people. They also say that they're in San Francisco Bay, which is expensive and a lot of competition, which that is not wrong. Our business depends on the interoperability of our solutions across third-party platforms, operating systems, and applications, and on our ability to ensure our platform and solutions operate effectively on those platforms. If we are not able to integrate our solution with third-party platforms in a timely manner, our business could be harmed. Now, this is kind of getting a little repetitive, but this was things like, remember when they got into the fight with, I don't remember the name right now, but the online gaming store in the little past about a year and a half ago. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff they got to stop doing. We are dependent on the success of our customers in the gaming market. Adverse events relating to our customers or their games could have negative impact on impact. That's pretty straightforward. If game companies can't make games or can't make money making games, they're not going to pay money to Unity. It's a trickle-down effect. We rely on third-party data centers, cloud infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. So if AWS or whatever, Google Cloud goes down, and it could hurt them as well. Our core values of putting our users first may cause us to forgo short-term gains and may not lead us to long-term benefits we expect. This one's actually interesting to be in there because one of the biggest negatives generally of an IPO is you put short-term gains over users first kind of thing. I don't know if this is just talking out their arse, but the truth of the matter is the audience for this document isn't Unity developers. It's people investing in Unity. So the fact that they were saying they are going to forgo short-term revenue gain to keep their users happy, that is ultimately a good thing here. We expect fluctuation in our financial results, making it difficult to project future, blah, 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 blah. And then pretty much a rundown of what all just went on. Seasonality, blah. Downturns, blah. Third parties whom we do business, unable honor their obligations, blah. Reseller dependencies, blah. Direct sales targets larger customers. Sales to these customers involve risks that may not be present or are present to a smaller extent with respect to sales to smaller customers. That kind of makes sense. So when you go into a big shop and you're doing a direct negotiated sale, you're going to get a whole lot more out of it, but you've got more potential to lose money there. Whereas you or I buying our license at, $300 a month or whatever, we're just $300 a month. We're a very safe $300 a month. They don't enhance their brand. Our cultural emphasis on innovation. If we cannot maintain the culture as we grow, our business could be harmed. Again, this was another interesting one to see there because it says that they are all about trying to keep their internal culture going and a developer-focused thing there, which is the kind of stuff, again, where an IPO normally hoses you. Business subject to risk associated with the gaming industry. That is not untrue. If the market for a platform does not continue to grow, they won't grow. That makes sense. Estimates of market opportunity and forecasts in this prospectus may prove to be inaccurate, even if the market in which we compete achieves the forecasted growth. Basically, they're saying the numbers they've done may not be accurate, but they tried. We provide service level agreement obligations related to certain of our create and operate solutions. If we fail to meet those, it's going to cost us some money. And that's kind of going back to that whole big customer thing. If you're offering, say, one of the very common things in cloud hosting is something like 5.9 support, which means 99.999% uptime. If you don't do that, often there is a fee or a penalty attached or a waiving of costs or revenue. So if they don't meet their service level agreement with those customers, they can get hosed. Indemnity provisions in various agreements to which we are a party potentially expose us to substantial liability for infringement, misappropriation, or other violation of intellectual property rights, data protection, and other losses. Pretty straightforward on that one. If we fail to offer high quality support, our ability to retain and attract customers could suffer. That's interesting again. So they're focusing here. They're basically saying, yes, we need to keep spending money to innovate, to keep our people, and we want to focus on, customer satisfaction, which again is good to see. Acquisition, strategic investments, partnerships, and alliances could be difficult to identify. Post-integration challenges, divert the attention of management, disrupt our business, dilute stockholder value, blah, blah, blah. Basically what they're saying here is when they go to buy something, they might do something stupid and buy something wrong, or they're going to direct attention from their executives towards these acquisitions, which may end up going nowhere, and that's just kind of a built-in liability in general. We are subject to rapidly changing and increasingly stringent laws, contractual obligations, and industry standards relating to data, privacy, data security, protection of children. There are so many examples here, the GDPR, the COPA Act, and so on. These things all cost money to implement, and they just keep happening and happening and happening, so that's just pretty straightforward. That one applies to pretty much every single company that's operating in this space. Companies and governmental agencies may restrict access to platforms platforms, our website, mobile applications, blah, 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 blah. You know, Great Wall, Firewall of China, which is actually what they are mentioning right here. You lose that market. That is definitely a risk. Again, applies to all online companies. Adverse changes in economic, legal, and political landscape in China could have a material effect on business conditions. Okay, I ain't getting into politics. You know what I mean. It's not a good scene right now. And if there's some tit for tat stuff, like with what's going on with TikTok, they decide to retaliate by saying, okay, Unity can't do business in China. Hey, that could happen. And yeah, it could affect their revenue. We are subject to anti-corruption, anti-bribery, anti-money laundering, and similar laws and non-compliance, blah, 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 blah. Pretty straightforward. Once again, you know, they got to follow law. If they go afoul of it, it could cost them money. We're subject to governmental export and import controls. This one's kind of the same thing. For example, the U.S. banned certain computer code from going to Iran, for example. If they decide to apply that to other places, it could ultimately hurt them. Interestingly enough, our customers outside the United States generated approximately 72 and 76% of our revenue. So the rest of the world is 3/4 of their revenue, but if the U.S. government does something stupid, 3/4 of their revenue is kind of at stake here. Sales to government entities and highly regulated organizations are subject to a number of challenges and risks. They sell to U.S. federal, state, and local, as well as foreign governments. Kind of shocked at that, but pretty standard disclaimer there. Any failure to obtain, maintain, protect, or enforce our IP and property rights could impair our ability to protect our proprietary technology and our brand. Yeah, that's kind of one of the same things. If you don't, preserve your copyright, you don't have your source code stolen. They do say, so while we rely on periodic significant updates to our source code to encourage customers to access our source code through us on a paying or for a qualified user non-paying basis. That's interesting right there, a little comment about how the source code works for them. But getting that source code out there and someone making a competing product or violating their Unity trademark, etc., could ultimately hurt them. Our ability to acquire and maintain licenses to intellectual property may affect our revenue. This is basically the same thing in reverse. They license in things such as the Havoc physics system and other technologies they might license internally and use themselves. If they lose access to them, obviously there's problems there. We are and may in the future become subject to IP disputes, which are costly and subject to significant liability. Again, that's kind of universal to the world of basically software makers. We use open source software in our products, which could negatively affect our ability to sell our service and subject to us litigation or others. That's an interesting one right there. Basically, they are using open source, I guess. I'm not really sure where they're going here, but if there's litigation that results from that, that could cost them a lot of money. Any legal proceedings or claims against us could be costly and time-consuming to defend. Kind of straightforward again. Our business could be disrupted by catastrophic events. So they're talking specifically about San Francisco Bay, and you know the word earthquake. Yeah, earthquake is going to be there. Nothing really special there. They're in an area that is iffy. It's kind of sad that we live in a world where we have to mention cyber attack, war, or terrorist attacks as known possible problems with your IPO, but hey, that's the world we live in. And yeah, I think this one goes without explanation. You could have a health and epidemic or pandemic or so on, and it could hurt business. I think we all know what that clause is about. Current operations are global in scope, and we plan to further geographic expansion, creating a variety of operational challenges. I can break them all down here, but they kind of already broke down what a lot of those challenges are, with the various different laws and anti-corruption and money laundering, all that stuff they have to deal with. So there is definitely some duplication of concerns here. We experience excessive fraudulent activity or cannot meet evolving credit card associated merchant standards. We could incur significant costs. All right, that one is a little fringe and random, but basically I guess what they're saying is if a lot of people buy their technology fraudulently using like stolen credit cards or whatever, that could get expensive, but that one's pretty small. We're exposed to collection and credit risks, which could impact our operating results. Same sort of thing. Fluctuation in currencies. That one also, when you're an international company and you're doing business in, say, England, and then they do, say, Brexit, that can hurt the, say, Great British Pound, and then all of a sudden all the money that you had booked against that pound, now when you convert it back to USD, you just took a 15, 20, 30% bath just based off of that kind of stuff. Our global operations may subject us to potentially adverse tax consequences. We could be required to collect additional sales, VAT, and so on. Our ability to use our net operating losses and certain other tax attributes to offset for future taxable incomes or maybe subject to certain limitations. So now we're really kind of getting into the weeds on this stuff. So yeah, kind of, again, on the credit stuff, the international laws, and so on. And then we get into other risks about it, but you kind of got the gist of what's going on. You got an idea of what Unity is worth right now and where they're going with this. And that is essentially what an S1 filing is all about. You've also got a bit of a a breakdown of what they're going to use the IPO for. But truth of the matter is, as you can see with a lot of the spaces here, there's a lot of fill in for what they're going to be doing here. There's also some details on, what the company will be worth, how this is going to dilute existing shares. We got a breakdown again of what their cash on hand, their total debt. So you can see here, they're actually in decent financial shape. They got $453 million in cash and $124 million in debt. But when you're burning, your burn rate's $300 or $400 million, yeah, that's unfortunate. But their total capitalization, as you can see here, is, when you see these numbers here, bad. These numbers here, good. So if they got parentheses around them, they're generally a negative. But their total capitalization right now is $1.2 billion. Now, to give some perspective on this, Unreal Engine just went through a round of financing themselves. They're still private, mind you. They've got a valuation, or the investment was made as if Unreal Engine was valued at $1.7 billion. The current, again, placeholder value on this deal is $100 million, which is going to change. I imagine that in the end, Unity will probably end up being worth about $10 billion, I think I saw in the past. But that is it. That is the S1 filing for Unity going public. All right, there's a lot to cover there. Hopefully I nailed things as best as possible. I am not a financial guy. I dabble in markets. I have some experience in this regard, but don't take what I said as verbatim. If you want to go into investing, talk to someone who is actually, that's their job, not my top level understanding of things. But yeah, that is it. Unity is finally going public, probably to the surprise of no one. Sort of like incorporating in Delaware, because everyone incorporates in Delaware. So, yep, that is that. Now, what do you think of Unity going public? It's interesting that they've got some things in here basically saying we've got to keep our customers happy. We have to keep our product solid. We have to be a stable product. We can't break this. We need to have good training and facilities on hand. They do seem to be putting in there basically saying, yeah, we can't focus on just earning money when we go public, or it's going to really hurt us. So it's good to see that kind of stuff. But the reality is, when companies go public, they trade one master for another. And this one, it's shareholders. And that always has more of a short-sighted view. And I hate to think that, Epic Games will be able to outmaneuver them simply because they have their hands less tied. But it will also bring in fresh cash to Unity, make them more buoyant, give them more opportunities. So there can be some upsides to IPOs, but I'm interested in hearing what you think of this entire thing and the future of Unity. All right, that's it. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.